Netflix and YouTube and all these guys. And I'm like, look, they're not complaining about having complete control over their content.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Jeff Heilman Project. My name is Jessica Heilman, and I'm sitting here with the one and only Jeff Heilman.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another awesome episode. This one's going to be super exciting, talking about play.
Well, today is the conclusion of this episode is the conclusion of a 4-week series that we've been doing all about play. We started out with the first week, P, which represented provoke a change, followed by L, leads to a response. The whole purpose of this is when we play, and we play in a positive way, as in playing away our stress, playing away, just enjoying the moment and being able to be fully present with play, provokes a change, leads to a response, activates us towards action, and then today is our final week, which we are going to cover the Y in P.L.A.Y, which is yielding to basically a complete surrender of the result of playing and playing hard. There's that moment when you're done playing, or after you've exerted all of your energy and have just had the time of your life, when you go, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how when you go ahead and go out on a limb and you do something that's potentially very scary, when you go and you throw yourself out there, you put your heart over the bar, you're in it to win it, and you give it everything that you've got. You've gone the full distance. You've gone to the fourth quarter. You've done everything that you can do. There's a period and there's a moment of yielding, and that yielding just releases all of the toxicity in our system. It brings us to a position, I would dare say, of enlightenment. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Is there's a difference, we've been talking about the last 4 weeks, between resting and just, unplugging, and there's a time for that, and going and being on a beach and just like totally vegging out. I actually read an article today, Jeff, and it's called bed rotting. ROTTING.
Bed rotting.
And evidently it's this latest thing on TikTok is bed rotting. And what you actually do is you go into your bed and you discipline yourself to not leave your bed the entire day, and you just binge and you go on social media, and it's called bed rotting. And it was interesting because the article,
Didn't know there was a name for the thing I've been doing every weekend for the last year.
There was a name from all these. There were several different scientists and psychiatrists that were saying, like, yeah, this is a totally valid way of unplugging.
Wow.
So I'm not talking.
Justified.
I'm not talking here about bed rotting. What I'm talking here is about a play and becoming fully present, but like playing and really enjoying and really being involved through provoking change, leading a response, activating action, and then coming to this total and complete satisfaction, which is yielding to the, whether you call it the universe or the atmosphere or whatever. And so I guess today, for today's episode, I'm glad to be back, everybody. I'm in the studio.
We got so many things to talk about today.
I would love to be able to talk about, Madeline and I, thanks to your impressions, thanks to your encouragement, Madeline and I went for a 24-hour turnaround period to Las Vegas to go see the Maroon 5 concert as they were finalizing their residency at the Dolby. And it was just a quick 24-hour. I mean, we played hard. It provoked us to change. It led to a response. It created action. And then at the end, when we got back, we were able to go, that was just a really good trip.
And you got to see your best friend, too.
I got to meet my best friend.
One of your best friends.
Whom I've never met in person for the first time. And hi, Natalie. Shout out to Natalie.
What's up, Natalie and Craig?
But I think that what I think is so awesome about it, the most awesome thing about it, is being able to be in that frame of mind and that posture where you are able to say, I did it all. I did. If it
What
like,
did you do? Let's take
I just,
that.
oh my
Let's
God.
unpack our 40 hours that you were on the road, starting at the 4:38 wake up call, where I was like, Jess.
Well, I snuck into Madeline's room and I said, "Hey, you want to go?" And she's like, "I don't know." And so between deciding at like 6 o'clock that we were gonna let's do this thing to 10:30 being on the
I
airplane,
think you were on the
basically,
flight at 10, right?
we got the concert tickets, got the place that we were going to stay, got the airplane ticket, all within a matter of just a couple of hours. We jumped on the airplane. We were in the airplane. As soon as we landed, we went straight to the hotel. And then Madeline's never been to Las Vegas before. And let me just tell you, Las Vegas is an entirely different atmosphere during the day than it is at night.
Isn't that true? Yeah.
So it was, totally. There were so many families walking around, and as many as could be at 106 degrees. But we were. I wanted to show her the Venetian, and she, as soon as we went into the Venetian, oh no, the Bellagio, we walked through the garden, and Madeline was like, "Okay, where do we go to next?" I'm like, "Okay." So we literally hit like the Venetian, we hit the Paris, we hit the Palazzo. I mean, if it was a big resort, we saw it very quickly, and we had like just the best food. She got to go visit Italy and see Italian food. We got to eat at Giada's and have the best lemon spaghetti ever. And so it was just one of those moments when we were able to be fully present, fully aware, and be able to say, like, you have a motto as of late that it's like, if it isn't heck yeah, then I don't want to do it. I don't want to have any part of it. And so what we're
Yeah.
encouraging people with this podcast, and as they continue to come up in the world, is take as many moments of heck yeah as you possibly can. And if there is an opportunity, if it is financially feasible, obviously we would not be encouraging anybody to do anything like this if it would put them into
Yeah. I
dire
mean, it
strait,
was
any
not
financial,
a cheap
any financial
getaway,
duress.
but
But when you not don't let your being pragmatic keep you from opportunity to where you can build a memorable moment. And being able to build memorable moments with our children is like super cool. And even with friends, being able to, I mean, you have had some amazing play opportunities, like going to
yeah.
Bermuda and Costa Rica, and these opportunities where your friends have
Yep.
called you and it's like, "Hey, I
Multiple
got
golf
this
trips to Orange
Seminole
County,
and
Seminole in Florida. We did. I've done 2 or 3 trips to San Diego to see Ed Rush. I've done a Southern California, Orange County trip to see Scott Zimmerman and play golf. I've did a guy's trip to play golf in Augusta, not Augusta National, but flew into Augusta and played Sage Valley across the river over in Aiken, South Carolina. And then we played a couple of other great venues too on that trip. And then I've done multiple trips to the west coast of Florida.
you had
We
that
did the
whole
Costa Rica trip. We did the
you went
Bermuda trip.
down to LA to drive Ferraris for the
Yeah,
weekend or something.
yeah, we did.
Like,
I got to test drive the new Ferrari Roma, which was pretty amazing.
yeah.
That was from Abdel. Got me set up with an
I
invite
just,
to that.
I want anybody who's watching to recognize, to understand and hear us. Like, we have been broker than broke, like the brokest of broke. If
I
you want
remember
to,
when the cars that we would drive around and look at nice houses in were almost, it
embarrassing.
looked like we were stalking
The
the
Gardners
joints.
had better
Yeah, the
cars
Gardeners
than
had better
we
cars
would
than
dream
we
build.
had.
But I think that it's
But we
important.
always drove
Yeah,
around
exactly.
the $10 million
To
houses.
get
Always.
to that point of
For 30 years we've been doing that.
discomfort in order to recognize that they're like you can push, because we don't want to get we don't want anybody to misinterpret the fact that life is a struggle. It's not all about fancy cars and diamond rings and all of this stuff. What it's about is, are we dreaming? Are we putting ourselves out there? And there are things that you can do in the spirit of dream building to grow and to stretch and to go beyond where you might currently find yourself situated in your station. And then coming to that point that when we play hard, we will find ourselves yielding to the higher power, and the higher power more often than not will inspire us to do greater and bigger things.
Let's talk about that for a second. I've probably been bed rotting, I would say at least one weekend a month, if not two.
Hey, the
Um,
article said it's a valid way of
it's a tremendous way of, number one, relaxing because I'm just in bed and letting my body rest from the constant stress of people wanting stuff from me. Plus, I can go anywhere I want. I can go online. I can go to YouTube. I can go to podcasts. I can take notes. I can write down topographical maps of what we're trying to build and where we're at and on where we want to be. And this weekend, I was not super struggling, but I'd been trying to get through that feeling of like, dude, I'm totally meant for more. And it's not like I'm meant for more and I work a $10 an hour job and I'm dreaming about Ferraris and jet airplanes in Monaco. Like, we've been to places like that. I've been all over Europe. We've been to the Middle East. I've been to Central Latin America.
Florida, the
Yeah,
Keys,
46 of the 50
the
states,
Caribbean.
Caribbean,
Yeah.
Bermuda. I mean, I've probably been to nine. I think Andrew and I did the math on it. I've been to 95 out of the top 100 largest cities in America, Canada and Mexico and Costa Rica area. And it's like it doesn't mean anything other than the fact that, like, we're not beginners at experiencing really nice lifestyle. We've stayed at Four Seasons hotels and spent tens of thousands of dollars on vacation. We did, a huge trip to Disneyland this last time. So it's not like we've never experienced these things. But when people think about success, if they stagnate for a period, they think about next level. If you're at 100 grand, you want to get to 200 grand. If you're at 2, you want to get to 5. If you're at 5, you want to get to 8. And if you're at 8, you want to figure out how to make 5 without working. You know,
Mhm.
it's a pretty consistent theme that, like, there's always a better way to do stuff. So I took this weekend and I was thinking about this podcast. I was thinking about you, all of you, and this podcast, and what we're doing it for, right? Is it for the subscribers? Is it for the likes? Is it for the comments? Uh, and the truth is, for I think anybody that's building content, it's not really for any of those things. It gets back to what we talked about last week with the feel of the racket in Djokovic's hand, which his coach was able to remind him of. And so I went through and I listened to a fantastic, about an hour and a half long podcast with Simon Sinek on the High Performance Podcast, and he talked about his kind of theme in his book that got him recognized and inserted into the conversation. It was called "Start with Why." And what he thinks about, it's a circle. You have like a target, like a circle, and then a circle inside and a circle inside. In the center of the circle is the word why, and the next ring around it is the how, and the next ring around it is what, or what are you doing? And how, I think it's what is in the second ring, and then how is in the outside ring. And his premise was, hey, we know what we do, right? I sell software. I can tell you how to do it: make calls, have meetings, do demos, close deals, right? That's your how to do it. But why? Why do I do that? Why don't I sell chicken manure? Or why am I not a farmer? Why am I not a mechanic, a Porsche 911 mechanic, which I might do that actually as an amateur. That sounds fun. And there's an exercise that we go through where you tell stories, you write stories out, and you get into detail. And I had an incredible um, an incredible connection. I want to share this with all of you guys today. Being that we grow up in this era, I think that self-awareness is not uncommon, and being able to communicate that it could add value to people, that they could learn the lessons, any kind of lessons, regardless of what we're trying to show, could be valuable. So think about an engine block, which creates power, and think about a transmission, which converts that power into the back wheels, or typically the back wheels, but sometimes four-wheel drive or front wheels. So the engine is like our emotions, and the transmission is actually doing the work. But doing the work is hard. It's hard.
Absolutely.
Doing work is hard. That's why they call it work. It's not easy to do. It's not easy for me to do. And so there's a clutch plate in between, for people that like mechanics and engineering, the clutch for the old manual cars and also for the automatic cars, the clutch is the part that actually allows the engine and the transmission to connect. And now with modern day cars, they don't do it physically with mechanical parts; they do it with liquid. So effectively, the flywheel from the engine comes in, spins and turns, and it turns liquid, and then that liquid turned by fans turns liquid, which turns fans without touching them. It turns them through the liquid. It turns the fan on the front end of the transmission, and that's what creates the torque that drives the wheels. And that clutch plate from this bed rotting, I have to look it up. It's a new phrase I just learned 20 minutes ago. The clutch plate from the emotion of saying I'm meant for doing more to the transmission of actually taking action and breaking things down into bite-sized pieces so that you can get over the inertia of being stopped, in my opinion, is getting really clear on what your why is. So I'm not
Yeah,
endorsed. I'm not an affiliate for Simon Sinek,
certainly.
but I really like him. I
Well,
like what he did for me.
I'd like to add. I think it was episode in one of our many episodes in the last. What are we at? 19, 20 episodes, I
Something
think.
like that.
Andrew, do you know where
20?
we're at?
This will be our 22nd.
22nd. Okay.
So out of the 22nd
I'll
episodes,
ask about his new computer here in a minute.
in the beginning of the towards the beginning, I had expressed my fitness journey. And since then, we are now in August. So
Give me a tattoo.
since February, I've lost 27, 28 pounds. And so there's still more to go. Um, but since I've been doing it, this is not sponsored by Noom or anything, but within the Noom that have been working with, it's all the psychology behind losing weight. It talks about the why. It definitely reiterates week after week on one of the many things is, why are you doing this? Why are you denying yourself of those extra calories? Why are you continuing to go to the gym? Why are you doing it? And the founder of this program, the founder of this mindset, is what they call it, he found himself pretty much a very successful music producer in his 20s, and his father was dying of cancer, and his father was a doctor. And as a doctor himself, his father said, if I were to go back in time and do anything, again, it would be focused more in my healthcare practice on preventative medicine, because we have been failing and we're consistently failing our clientele, our patients, by not talking preventatively about what they can do in order to become healthier individuals. And so he leaned over, and you can imagine, this is
Like a deathbed
the founder of
promise type
Noom
thing?
is in like his 20s, and he's with his father who's dying of cancer. And his father asks him, and he says, I know you love music, and I think it's awesome that you've become as successful as you've become, but what are you doing? Why are you doing music? And he's like, well, I love music. And then his dad asked him again, like, well, why do you love music? And he's like, why do you do this? And he's like, he couldn't come up with a really good answer. He liked money. He liked making money, and that's what he could see was what could make money. But his father finally kind of in the end was like, whatever you do, make sure that you're adding value to society. Make sure
Yeah.
that you're adding value to people. And so as a result, he came out of it and he created this program for, it started out as just like it was a tracking, they started out writing an app for tracking movement, like your, how many steps and that type of thing. And then it morphed into this whole mindset behind the science behind losing weight, and coming to a point to where you have a very clear why, and then going through the process of, okay, so you want to lose weight, what, so you look better in jeans, but there's really something behind, more than just you want to look better in jeans. You end up going through the process of cataloging it to where, like, no, I want to live longer for my children. I want to be able to be there. I want to be healthy when I'm a great great grandpa or a great great grandma. I want to be able to, I want to be able to reverse what seems like a family curse of diabetes or heart disease or something in my family. And so it really boils down to, especially as for you, what I hear what you're saying, Jeff, is like you have a main theme in your life is that you want to be a good provider for the family. You want to be able to raise 7 kids and keep your wife home and be financially
Stay
successful
home.
and to stay home, be financially successful for your family. And then, I, as a mom, I want to be able to be healthy and I want to be able to keep up with my it's very similar. We're going on a very similar trajectory towards our
Yep.
whys, and it's very important. And I think that that falls perfectly in line with when you've played hard and you're finally you've given
Really rested.
everything that you can to whatever it is that you're doing. You're so open to hearing and to receiving what the message is that you're supposed to. Your why seems to become so much more clear, and it's like sometimes it just takes a little bit more. It's going to take a little more money sometimes. It's going to take a little more effort sometimes to play, but it's
It's going to take a
definitely,
little more discipline sometimes to lose weight. I
yeah,
didn't think before you started Noom,
yes.
to your credit for helping me as well. And I'm down, I think I was 248.
Yeah,
So
a big part of
I'm
it
down
was
like
when
10 pounds.
that episode that we had with Christopher and continuing the conversation with
Yeah,
health,
about
like to
diet.
be able to understand health and
Yeah, you basically,
diet.
you can't outwork overeating. You just
No, you
can't.
can't.
You can't
No.
outwork overeating. I mean, you could burn 3,000 calories a day and easily eat 4. Be hungry enough to eat 4,000 calories,
Yeah.
and you're going to get fat. And you're burning more calories than most people burn
But
in 2
again,
days.
if you don't know the why, if you like
100%.
why why do you lift weights? Like if you don't understand why you lift weights, you're certainly
Yep.
not going to go behind a squat rack and try to
Exactly right. And
200
that was
pounds.
actually the thing that got me lifting weights in the first place was I watched Christopher. I saw what he did, and I was at the same time juxtaposed against that, right? It's always the thing that creates action in people's lives is always the gap being between where they see themselves to be. I did not see myself as a fat, sleepy, good for nothing, fall asleep on the couch, drinking beer dad. I've never seen myself that way. And yet that's exactly what I was doing for probably the last 6 months of 2021.
Join the post-pandemic
Yeah,
club.
that was
Or
in
mid-pandemic
pandemic,
club.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here, I'm drinking more than I wanted to drink. I'm weighing more than I'd ever weighed. I'm falling asleep at 6 o'clock in the evening, exhausted, working basically 6 to 6, and not spending any time with the kids or with you. And then I see, Christopher's 8 years older than me, bouncing around like a rabbit, fired up, and looking. And he's like, "Your testosterone levels are low."
Yeah.
And that's because when we turn 40, it starts to decline. And if you sit and have a sedentary lifestyle and get to almost 50, which I'll be 50 in another year plus, you have the sedentary lifestyle and you're over 40 and you have no testosterone in your system. So unless you want to take shots and go to the doctor and get prescriptions, which I'm not saying people shouldn't do that, but the easy button for that is just lift weights. Just start lifting weights. And one program that we look at for the weightlifting side, Mark Rippetoe, did starting strength. I worked out 3 days a week for 3 months, and my entire life transformed before my very eyes. I got tons of energy. I went from sleeping 9 hours and being exhausted at 6 o'clock to sleeping 5.5 hours and being able to work 12 and 14-hour days. And I got my life back. I got my youth and my vitality back because of the chemical nature changes that came from exercise.
I just hope that we can get to the state, and if I can do a little imaginary with those that are listening or even those that are watching on YouTube. Can you remember
Late Paul Rubens.
when you're in the field and it's recess, or it could be PE, and you're in the field and there's that smell of that grass, of that fresh cut grass, and you're running and you're playing and you're holding your hands. I remember as kids we used to play Red Rover, send so and so over, right? And you'd play and you'd give it all that you've got and you're running, and then there's this point when you let go of the hands because you've just been dogpiled or tackled or something, but you're just having the best time, and you fall back into the grass and you look up and you see the clouds and there's a breeze and you're laughing so hard that you go, you're just, nothing could be better. And it's because it's been a positive balance of exertion. It's been a positive balance of community because you've been with others. It's been a positive experience of laughter because you've allowed yourself to
It's enlightening.
be an idiot for a minute. and you get to just be like, feel like like if you were 12, you got to feel 12. If you were 6, you got to feel 6. And there was no responsibilities or anything other than just being able to fall back onto that soft earth, look up at the clouds, and just really exhale. And so,
Yep.
what I would love to be able to encourage anybody who's watching this podcast today, listening to the reels, the stories, whatever, is to be able to take to whatever it is that you're doing. If you can get to that point to where you can be fully aware and conscious of the moment, and that you've given everything that you've got into whatever it is that you were doing, to be able to be in that place again where you're looking up at the clouds and you're watching them go by, and the temperature is right, and your body feels right, and you're laughing and you're just enjoying and you're having the time of your life. Because at the end of the day, like you were talking about, Jeff, about finding your why, I feel like it is our job here with this podcast and with what we're attempting to do with the Jeff Heilman Project, with Jessica Builds, with
'Cause I'm a
everything,
project.
is to encourage people to have the time of their life. You only live once. This is all we've
Going back
got.
to the Yes to Life. Is that what we're
Yes.
talking about? Yes to Life from
Well,
um,
we've been talking about Yes to Life. We've been talking about, you were talking about Simon Sinek. You were talking about bed rotting. You
oh,
were
so
talking
let's talk
about
about bed
coming. You
rotting
were
again. I want
talking
to go back.
about coming
Yeah,
to your
I want to
why
go back to that.
for the podcast.
So, we all reach times when we're not seeing results, not really, when we just get tired. And when you have one person who's tired and the other person's tired and you're not getting the results, and it's like, wah. I mean, I'm as big a crybaby as anybody, and I've certainly felt sorry for myself for decades at different times and during different seasons about different things. And I was just getting to the point with the podcast where I was frustrated, not because I don't like the work or because I don't think it's good, or that everybody wants more followers, right? And we've had, I think at this point we're at episode 20, and we've had about 25,000 views across all the reels. Like the entire Jeff Heilman project has about 25,000 views organically. And then we've also had lots of impressions on LinkedIn and Twitter for our pre and post call to action posts. There's a number,
Yeah.
right? Is it big? Is it little? I don't know, because I don't have anything to compare it to. Never did a podcast before, but it's certainly more than 5 or 10. There's people who are, and the feedback is consistently pretty good. But I was curious as to how does this line up with what we're trying to do? And so I took myself to task to try to find an answer to the question, why am I really doing this? Why am I putting myself out there? Why are we paying thousands and thousands of dollars for computers and equipment and recording gear and microphones and lighting? Why are we taking time out and sitting in a 115-degree
It's not really that hot.
garage in a 98-degree day outside? It's pretty hot in here. Why are we really doing it? And could my bed rotting example be valuable to anybody if I were to expose the inner workings of my heart and why we're doing this? And I think it can. And so here was the mechanism, and then I'll give you the yield in a minute. The mechanism was write out a half a dozen stories about emotional times in your life. And they could be positive and they could be negative. They don't have to always be sunshine. It could be 6 bad days. But typically what you'll find the reason why it was a bad day, and there was some emotional thing that wasn't getting met. And then you can turn that around and say, well, I felt bad because I wasn't getting to spend time with my friends. I got grounded or something. And then you go, okay, well, what is it like to spend time with friends? And from these, I didn't write 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 stories. The exercise was to write 6. I wrote about 40 stories, and I have a quick algorithm for it. It's 3 parts, so it's basically a 3-bullet story that I draw inside of a circle, and that creates my story. And it's a premise or an opening theme, a promise of a payoff or a problem statement, the thing trying to get resolved, and then the resolution. And it's the same thing every time. So I did 40 of those. And from that, I got really clear, really, really, really clear, just instantly, after hours and hours, 3 days of this. And then an instant moment showed up where I understood why I'm doing this. And It's so clear and so easy to see, and I'm so excited about it that I'd hoped that the transition from kind of depression to evangelistic was so fast that it would be beneficial. So here's the reason why I'm doing this. The thing that makes me mad most, more than anything in this country, is that we don't teach our children. We're the only nation in the world that does not teach its own children the system of economics that made it a world power. And, in my opinion, the greatest nation in the history of the universe. We don't teach it. It's not communism. It's not socialism. It's not big government. It's not big business. It's not working for Big Boy Restaurant. Nothing wrong with working for Big Boy Restaurant. It's entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the system of economics that makes this country great. And the thing that makes me the most angry, more than anything else, is that this country has a positioning and a nudging and a pushing and a social pressure from our peer groups, some of our church leaders, some of our political leaders, some of our town pillars of our towns. The message is always go to school, 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 get an education, go to school and get a degree, go to school and go to college, get into a great college, do this, do that. And they never talk about entrepreneurship ever. And it really pisses me off. It really pisses me off because if we don't teach our children our own system of economics, we're at risk of losing it. If we don't teach our children the Bible, we risk losing the Judeo-Christian fundamentals from which the freedom that entrepreneurship gives us is sustainable. And if we don't teach our children about free enterprise and the fact that you can go to school and get a good education and follow all the rules, but don't forget that that does not make you exempt from competing in the marketplace as a sole proprietor or a small business owner. And I'm not here to preach politics. We don't even talk politics on this. The amazing thing is some people might say or try to make this a political statement. It's not a political statement. It's an economic statement.
And it goes also that we happen to teach Bible, but whatever it is, whatever doctrine that you subscribe to.
Yeah, it could be the Quran. I don't care if you, in the Quran, you still got to be an entrepreneur.
Teach it. If you do not pass it down, if you do not tell the stories about it, if you do not make it a part of your daily practice or a part of your core values in your home, that is at risk of being lost. And a big part of the reason why we are such an advocate for the foundational principles of this country is that this country was founded on our ability to have the freedom to choose the way that we would practice, whether it's choosing the way that we would practice theologically or choose the way that we would practice.
It wasn't even freedom they were after.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't going toward freedom. People think about they're going toward freedom. They weren't going toward freedom. They were going toward a wilderness. They were going toward crazy people in bondage to shipping companies that would sell indentured servitude contracts in order to get people over here because they were fleeing persecution from the Church of England. That's why they came over here. They were fleeing a place that had gotten so, they were seeking refuge. They were the first Amnesty International.
Bring me your tired, worn out mass.
Yeah, bring me your tired, worn out masses, yearning to be free, yearning to get away from religious persecution, specifically from the Anglican King James Church of England Church. Now, that is not the same as the Bible. It is not the same as God. That is not the same as a personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
It's religion.
It's religion. It's the hoop jumping that somebody else says we got to do in order for them to validate our position with God.
So are you saying that
ridiculous?
The why that you discovered after bed rotting this weekend was because you're feeling called to the next generation via this podcast to be able to yield and encourage them to be able to yield towards a understanding of entrepreneurship and understanding.
Yeah, it's understanding
economics.
Who brought us to the dance that we're now invited to, right? And I know it's a serious tone, and a lot of people, I want I want to convey the emotional response without necessarily, pissing anybody off on this podcast. That's not my goal. My goal is to communicate that I was frustrated because I had forgotten why we started doing this in the first place. And the reason we started doing this in the first place is because entrepreneurship needs to be sustained. There needs to be a plan of action from business owners and entrepreneurs to communicate to the children of the Gen Z and the Gen Alphas that, look, going and getting a job as a union key grip in Hollywood is not owning your own business. It's not being free. And when the writer's strike comes and shuts down everybody's, and they're griping and whining and complaining about it, just like I'm griping and whining and complaining when I get laid off at my job. But the bottom line is, it's like, if you owned your own business, if you owned your own production company, you wouldn't be in a situation where somebody else decides whether or not you get to get up and go to work.
These situations where you're seeing this happening is giving those who create content independently, like what we're doing right now. It's going to create a opportunity for those
100%.
For those who are not feeling bound by the handcuffs of a way that things are supposed to be.
Totally agree.
To opening, and that's what. And
I was having this conversation on Facebook yesterday with a friend of mine who's currently they're actors.
Mm-hmm.
God bless them for being actors. I think it's great. I think the content they create with movies that blesses millions of people's lives is phenomenal, and I support the art, and I support the artists that make the art. But at the same time, they're griping and whining and complaining about, Netflix and YouTube and all these guys, and I'm like, look, they're not complaining about having complete control over their content. Mr. Beast isn't complaining about the $68 million that he made last year, or the fact that he owns all of his content, or the fact that he flips a switch with Mr. Beast Burger and creates a restaurant franchise chain of 1,700 locations in less than 150 days because of the influence that he's not griping and complaining about being 23 years old and having to say no to multiple billions of dollars of offers for his business. What's keeping all the rest of the folks in Hollywood from doing what he's doing? It's like the cab driver that I was talking to 2 years ago during COVID in Las Vegas, and he's going, God, the Uber drivers are making all the money. God, the Uber drivers are putting us out the business. God, the Uber drivers are taking all my hours. God, the Uber drivers are getting all my time. I'm like, pal, I got a solution for you here, and it's staring us both right in the face. Have you heard of Uber? Have you ever met anybody that drives for them? If they're taking all the money, go drive for Uber.
So let's talk then. Let's just for a minute, because hey everybody. Hi. So we do, we are married. We have the very similar, but I'm also partly a teacher. I am also a teacher. And in my teaching, because while I like business and I would hope someday to be in business, I recognize that being in business is not for everybody, because just as much as we need strong leaders, just as much as we need strong leaders in business, we will also need people to remain keeping the books. And as business owners need employees need business owners. But yet what I hope that you understanding here from me is that a lot of times we take these jobs as being employees as temporary situations to hopefully learn from the businesses that we are in submission to at that moment to become in our own. The goal, and coming across from both of us, the goal is always to end up being in your own deal, being in your own business, being able to represent yourself as a citizen of this country, as a business owner, as a business leader.
Yeah.
And so being able to get your feet wet by listening to podcasts like this, being able to do your research as feeling inclined to wanting to be in your own business one day, understand that it's not necessarily going to be just a overnight snap of your fingers and you figured it out and you know exactly what you're going to do. Sometimes you're going to have to get jobs along the way, and we would encourage you to go ahead and go try that thing, get that thing. But be aware when you're doing it, what can you do to change? Like, if you were going to do this business, what would you do differently, and how would you do it differently? And just don't become so washed. Don't become so desensitized by that job that you have that you begin to forget that you were created to do something remarkable and amazing as a
Yeah,
standalone
and keep in mind there's a
person.
bell curve for it, just like you were
Right.
talking about, right? You and I started a business when we first got married, and then we started another business in the janitorial business. Then we started another business and we switched to painting. Then I started another business and started doing merchant accounts. And then we did direct selling for a long time. Then I did speaking engagements and I did consulting for a while. You started a design business, then you started flipping
Yeah.
things on eBay.
Yeah,
I've
I'm
started,
not
I mean,
trying to
there's
say
so
that
many
I think
different
everybody
things.
could be in business. I'm not trying to say that there's certain people that were born to be, employees. I'm just
I was
trying to
born to
say
fail in business if that were the case, right?
I'm just
Not true.
my advocacy would be to say that you can succeed in a job just like you can succeed in being in your own business, but our understanding of how economics works, you're going to be far more productive, you're going to be
You could
far more
fail
successful.
every single year in a new business for 30 years,
Yes,
and in year 31 get to a six figure, and in year 32 make
100%.
a seven figure income. And still, if you started at 25, or if you started at 22 and failed in business every single year in a new business for 30 years until you were 52, and then made six figures in year 33, seven figures in year 34, and multiple seven figures in year 35, and still retire wealthy 10 years ahead of the 40/40 plan for W-2
Yeah,
college
what a
grads.
better example of being all in this life and living once than trying something for yourself, trying your own business, whether it's
Oh my
selling
God, yeah.
whether it's
And
selling,
could not be.
hand-drawn cards or,
Yeah, who's that gal that did the paper? She did the paper, some sort of paper company, and
Rifle Paper Company
Rifle
became
Paper
super
Company. She started
successful.
it on
If you
Instagram, and
follow Jonathan and Drew from Property
yes,
Brothers
yes,
from
Property
I
Brothers.
think they began selling coat hangers from Etsy. They were like creating coat hangers, something like that. So like there's ample opportunity to be able to take an idea. And so we're winding down. I know we've been in here. I can tell we've been here a while
My
because I can see the
face.
sweat
I
around
need,
Jeff's
I
collar
need
and
the powder. Where's the powder lady? Right with
yeah,
the face.
right? The makeup
Yeah,
lady.
makeup lady.
Yeah, we're not quite there
We don't
yet.
have one of makeup ladies yet.
But here's my call to action for those of you who are listening and watching. In the past, we have mentioned that we have a telephone number that you can text.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
In addition to the number that you can text, in which Andrew's going to put on the end of the screen, and at the end of this episode, you're going to be able to hear what that phone number is. If you have a business, or if you've even got an idea for a business that has just, you can't shake it, it's just you go to bed at night and in the middle of the night you
You don't
wake
even have
up
to
and
tell
the
us what it
idea,
is.
I'm giving you, please email the Jeff Heilman Project, and it's VTHE, Jeff, JEFF, Heilman, HEILMAN, project at gmail.com. So the Jeff Heilman Project at gmail.com. Email us. Tell us your idea. Let's pick. Jeff has taken 6+. How many companies have you taken to
We've
acquisition
had
now?
six acquisitions
6
so far.
acquisitions so far.
Not
He has
all my businesses, but
he has a Rolodex of people, not that he would connect you with, but I'm just wanting to encourage you that if
well, I
you've
can give you
got,
somebody to talk
yeah,
to,
if
just
you've
like
got
talking
an
with us about it. You
idea
don't even
for
have to
a
tell us what your idea is.
business
Just
and you want to
reach
get
out
it
and say,
off
"I
your
wanna talk to somebody."
chest, if you want to run those ideas by us, if you want to just reach out and talk to us and give us, you want to hear from us or whatever. I am
Or if you hate us and you
part
tell me
of
that I need to be quiet because I'm too excited about
today's
entrepreneurship, that's okay
episode
too.
on the why, P.L.A.Y, and the literal Y, the letter Y, the Y as in WHY, and in completely yielding. I'm yielding right now. I didn't know I was going to do this, but we would love to be able to hear from you
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
the Jeff Heilman Project at gmail.com. Please tell us what you're doing. Let us know what we can do for you
And know that the
and
purpose
encourage
behind
you in your entrepreneurship
this
endeavors.
content
Any
is,
country.
yeah, absolutely. The purpose behind this podcast from the very beginning, and I'm really glad that I took the time, 6 months in to reconnect with it, is that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are not going to know anything about entrepreneurship if we let another generation and a half go without showing them why this country is so great. Where did $53 trillion in net worth, not including real estate, that's just cash and electronic deposits, where did $53 trillion come from? Out of some backwoods, hillbilly chunk of dirt that a bunch of people freeing religious persecution 200 years ago, where did that come from? It came from entrepreneurship.
It's not just American. I mean,
Absolutely not
we were
America.
looking at the
The
stats
dissolution of the nation-state
and
borders, and look at what's happening in India right now. I think personally, I think India and Africa, I think probably Africa more than India, has more upside. They have more raw materials. They have more labor. They have more capital. They have more people. They have better vacation spots. I think
when we
Africa is
were
going to explode,
when
and
we were
technology
going
companies are
through
seeing them
the data
as huge upside markets.
when we were going through the data of who's watching this episode, who's watching these
Yeah,
on
people
YouTube,
in Asia watching this.
Asia,
I
the
don't even know
United
anybody in Asia.
Kingdom.
That's amazing.
So this is a
Thank
global.
you. Keep watching.
We are in a global economy. We are in an economy which is turning and changing. And we just this last weekend when we went to Los Angeles for our anniversary, I mean, we were at the Los Angeles County
We
Museum
ran
of
into a
Art
guy that
and
won
ran
the
into
BAFTA award from Germany for a little shout out to Kevin.
Yeah.
With the movie, by the way, the BAFTA award winner for this year is The Taster. I just watched it actually last night, watched it all the way through. And it's a short film. I think it's 30 minutes, but you can go when it comes out. You
Yeah,
can
so
see
this is we are in a global enterprise. We're in a global economy. We are in a position to where if we do not continue to talk about economics and talk about entrepreneurism, then we are at risk of losing it. But we're not going to lose it because of it going away. We're actually going to lose it by way of apathy, and other people are going to end up kicking our butts, and we're going to be left going. We're going to be left in crying in our soup, saying, "Well, why did they become successful?" Oh, well, it's because you didn't. It's because we didn't do anything.
it. Yeah. And
It's because we didn't take action. It's because we didn't
immortal,
play.
in the immortal words of Jim Rohn, somebody asked him one time, why aren't more people successful? And I loved his answer. Jim Rohn, if you've ever seen a Jim Rohn tape, if you haven't seen Jim Rohn, Jim Rohn, he was Tony Robbins' mentor. And Jim Rohn, for a professional speaker, was great. For a business person, sales guy was great. But Jim Rohn had like $500 million when he died. I mean, he incredibly successful, and he was absolutely busted, poverty-stricken, broke until he was 35. Jim Rohn said the reason why more people are not successful is because it's easy not to be. It's easy not to be. And so if we get addicted to what's easy, if I get addicted to my little bed rotting,
Yeah.
if I made that a habit, and I won't, that was my whole life, I wouldn't end up where we want to go, because it's easy not to be successful. It's hard. It's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to break things down into bite-sized pieces and to apply Kanban boards and 3x5 cards and plans and Gantt charts and burn down
It's
boards.
It's not easy to play. It takes effort. It takes effort.
It's not easy
to
to
play.
do this podcast. I mean, you make it easy for me, and Andrew makes it easy for me. By the way, before we go, Andrew, I want to hear, and the crowd wants to hear too, how do you like your new Mac Pod? What is it?
Wait, no, it's not even.
It's not an
my
iMac.
Mac.
What is it, Andrew?
It's a Mac Mini.
Mac Mini. Okay, we got you the Mac Mini. We've been at this 6 months now, and you needed a place to store and to do your work, so Mom could have her laptop back too. But how do you like your Mac Mini Mac?
It's good. It's not too much of a change. I use the same editing software and everything. It's just in a different place on a different workstation. So.
And it's yours, and you don't have to ask for it, which is
Yeah.
nice. You can work, and he's been working. Oh my gosh, folks! Shout out to Andrew. He's got weeks and weeks
Woohoo!
of reels planned in advance to drop. Excuse me. He's still working on reels from Christopher's episode, which
Yeah.
is like 15 episodes ago.
Yeah,
And,
27 pounds ago.
yeah, I mean, I'm thinner. I'm 10 pounds lighter at least. So a big shout out to Andrew. Happy about that. And then, what about tell us about your tattoo?
Yes,
You hit your weight goal for mid-range.
Uh, I like to practice rewardivation, and that is what I call motivation via reward. So I'll set up a reward in the future, and I'll let that reward motivate me. And so I've been meaning to add to my tattoo on my forearm. And
Getting spicy.
Yeah, right. And so I have this part of it that I want to add to it. And, tattoos aren't cheap, but they certainly shouldn't be. And if you're going to a cheap tattoo
You're
parlor,
going
be
to a
careful.
cheap tattoo parlor.
And so
I
part of it
recommend you upgrade.
was just hitting a weight goal and then being able to sustain. If I could keep that weight goal for a certain amount of time, then I would get this next phase in my tattoo. And so that's going to happen on Thursday, which is in a couple days from now. And it's just continuing the process of, what did they say? First tattoo on heart, then tattoo
And
on
tattoo on
body,
mind.
right? So
Yeah.
it's the why behind why I'm doing these things, and it's a cementing of I don't ever want to go back. I don't want to go
Yeah.
back. I want to be able to have this indelible ink on my body that I choose because it goes with what the message is that I'm carrying, and I want to be able to be reminded consistently that this is a feat. This has been
Yeah.
a feat, and so I'm glad that we're going to be able to do that and get that tattoo and keep working toward the goal to continue to get healthier and healthier as we get older as a successful way of playing and being able to live fully that towards the second half of our life being nearly 50
Yeah.
ourselves to be able to
Looking
look at
50 in the face is a sobering reality. And John Maxwell used to say, and this is not in the context of playing because um, John Maxwell meant it like playing and not being responsible, but he said you can play now and pay later, or you can pay now and play later. And I feel like you and I heard that when we were in our 20s, and we have been paying. We have been paying and paying and paying and putting it in and reading.
and maybe it's just time to flip that up because we used to say you can either pay now and play later or play now and pay later, but either way you're going to pay.
Either
Well,
way, you're
guess
going to
what?
pay.
You can play now and play later or play later, play now, but either way you're going to play.
Either way, you
So
need to play
we need
because you
to
need to
play.
have some levity from the stress. And it's totally
Absolutely.
time for us. It's totally time for us to start playing and enjoying our life and enjoying some of the money that we've been making and socking away.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about it is the more we play and the more we rest, the more money we make, the more
And it's
ideas
the
that we
more
get, the more
the law
business
of
opportunities come
attraction
our way.
starts
It's
pulling
incredible.
others who also want to play and want to continue to rest. Giada, when we were at her restaurant, on her all of the lamps, there's her quote, her motto, and it is I eat a lot. What is it? It's I eat a lot. Gosh, it's like I eat a little bit of everything, but I don't eat it. My gosh, can somebody it's
I'm going to
I
look it up.
eat.
All our phones are being used for cameras right now. Sorry, we can't look it
It's
up.
like the implication is
I eat a lot of
I
everything, but not
try
a lot.
a lot of everything, but I don't eat
A
a
lot of
lot of
anything.
anything. That's it. I try a lot. I try to eat a lot of everything, but I don't eat a lot of anything. In
Oh,
other words, like I'm not going to be weighed down by any one thing,
yeah.
but I'm gonna try it all.
Try it all. Yeah.
I'm gonna do it all.
We're going to go on vacation. We're going to drink wine. We're going to have steak.
Right.
We're going to live our life.
Moderation,
Because,
right?
I mean, the truth is we're going to be dead. And I talk about this with the kids. The Bible says the wise man thinks often of death. And I think that is not somebody who is depressed and concerned and worried and petrified and consumed with death. I think it's just, they just know, like, time's short. So get going. Like, get moving. Let's make this thing work while we're here. And so I talk to my kids all the time. I'm going to be dead someday, but thank God it's not today. So let's see what we can do to create a memory. Go for ice cream, go for skateboarding, do something fun, go to the park. There was a moment in time with the Las Vegas residency for Maroon 5. Madeline had wanted to see them for 10 years in concert. And, I think next week they fly to Sao Paulo,
Yeah.
Brazil, and they're all over Singapore and Australia for their the Pacific Rim tour. So the residency for Vegas is over.
Yeah.
And I knew that this is the window to do it. And we couldn't do it this weekend because Jeffrey's was scheduled to come into town.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to do it last weekend. And if we're going to do it, they don't have a Thursday show, right? Friday show. So that was when we did it, that was the time to do it. And your friend was there too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we executed on it within a period of a couple hours. And it was so fun. Like, you yielded to the craziness of the whole thing. You and Madeline yielded to what? Okay. What? I got to go to the airport, right?
Surrender. So
Yeah.
so we would love to encourage you as we say goodbye today. Please email us at thejeffheilmanproject@gmail.com.
Do they have to
Please
write that
text
every
us.
time?
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't. Hey,
The
not
Jeff
my
Heilman
fault.
Project.
Yeah, it's the Jeff
The
Heilman
Jeff Heilman
Project
Project at
at
Gmail is my email
gmail.com.
or
That is
email
our
address. Okay.
our email address.
Or you can text us.
Or you can text the number on the screen. But regardless, be in contact with us.
Please do.
We
Let
want
us
to
know what
hear
we can do
from
to
you,
help.
and we look forward to
Comment.
next week's episode, and we look forward to having you back here again with us. Thanks, everybody, and have an awesome rest of your day. Wherever you may be, don't forget to play.